All right, we are officially live. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Think Big podcast. I believe we are on episode 123, which is super impressive. My name is Marlon Johnson. If you're new to the channel, we got Sam Singh, the amazing, wonderful Italian stallion. What a handsome man. I mean, look at the locks. Gotta give you a big shout out, Sam. Last week, I couldn't be here because I was out gallivanting around the US again, which I promised I wouldn't do. But clearly, I thought I was a truth teller. Apparently, I'm the opposite of a truth teller because I told you, I made a promise to you, Sam, that I wasn't going to be traveling as much this year. And that doesn't seem to be holding true as of yet. So I'm working on it. I'm working on it, man. I'm trying. But I do appreciate that last week you held it down doing Q&A on the podcast. I knew it was happening. I knew the podcast still happened because I was still getting tagged on Instagram with people who were getting value from the episode. So huge shout out to you. What I want to talk about today though is we're in some interesting times, man. I mean, it's been quite fascinating over here at the Mindset Manor. We've been diving deep into things that are happening in the economy. We've been diving deep into changes that are coming in with 2025, how it's been affecting the real estate market, how it's been affecting the global market. And the reality is things are changing. And I don't think anybody can deny this. We have known for the last, I would say, 18 months that one of the largest wealth transfers of our potential lives is about to occur. And these events happen throughout history. And it just so happens that we're living through it right now. And I know it's causing a lot of FUD, which is fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But this is why people come to the Think Big podcast, because we're able to give them some insight and perspective so that you're not just sticking your head in the sand and waiting for the wave to crash over. You're also not out there making idiot mistakes because you were misinformed, but you can actually go out as an intelligent investor and really create some form of wealth for you, your family, and the next generation, if that's what you're into. Personally, I'm just trying to buy some Lamborghinis and go retire in Thailand, but to each his own. Am I right? So, Sam, first off, before we get started, how you feeling today, bro? I just gave like the longest winded intro ever.
I'm good, dude. I'm good. It's funny. We're starting to see right now because it's March. So, guys, quarter one is literally about to end in not very long. And we're already starting to see who is falling out of the race this year. And so for me, like, it's funny. We're probably working harder now than we did at the beginning of the year or at the end of last year. And the reason why is like we worked our asses off at the end of last year. We worked our asses off at the beginning of this year. And then now as we're seeing people fall out of the race, we're we're just like we're taking that as a sign to speed up, speed up, speed up. And across all of the businesses, right? All of the businesses in the real estate side, in the portfolio businesses, I'm just paying attention to how everyone is dropping like flies because we're about to get into the dog days. Like quarter two, quarter three, that's when just unless something amazing, this is a reality with a lot of people. They will work in the beginning and they will look for instant gratification, and it 99% of the time does not come. And so whatever goal they're trying to hit, they won't hit, and they don't get the instant gratification reward feedback loop that they're hoping for, that they need. And they need it because they rely on motivation, not discipline. And I'm watching all of them fade away. And the cool thing is this, funny enough, we're actually being much more quiet about a lot of things. Like if you guys are in tune with me on social media, like I've largely not been posting at all in any capacity, not even on stories. I don't text people back anymore. Like we are getting ahead of the dog days before everybody else. And I'm actually excited about it, man, because funny enough, we've actually set a new record the past month for all of the businesses in new record highs. And we're about to do something that I think is amazing. And it's funny because it's all about just hitting the gas when everyone else starts braking a little bit. So long-winded answer for me too, man, but I'm good, and I'm good for that reason.
Yeah,
But
all right. So I love it. And what's funny, by the way, because for you guys listening right now, I want to emphasize what Sam just said, only because about an hour ago, I just got off a phone call with one of my clients, Victor. And shout out to Victor, doing amazing things, amazingly well in his business. And when he and I hopped on a call, I could see it in his face that something was like good and positive. And he said to me, he said, "Man, I am so clear on what we need to be doing. All last month I committed, you know this, because I talked to him. We meet weekly, and he's like, last month I made up my mind that I was all in, that I was head down, I was focused, that it was work mode, it was grind mode, it was tighten the belt mode." And he said, as a result, where we are in business and what we're getting to build is we're hitting record months. And so I want to remind everybody it doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen if you stick to it. So let's come in and talk about the topic at hand tonight, though, because for my real estate investors, this is going to be a conversation that you need to listen to. If you are wholesaling, if you are looking at making active income in your business, you want to be able to understand how to properly identify a deal. If you are a person who's buying properties for the long term and you're looking to add to your portfolio, you're adding to your asset column, you need to understand how to identify a good deal in 2025. If you're somebody that's looking to flip properties, so you want to buy them, renovate them, rehab them, put them back on the market and resell them for a profit, you definitely need to understand how to identify a deal in 2025. And what happens oftentimes is I find that people will not properly define the word deal for themselves, their business, and their market. And so everyone's out hunting for a deal. I want a deal. I want a deal. I need a deal. I need a deal. But they don't actually know what a deal is, nor do they actually understand that when they say that word to somebody else, they're having two different conversations. Because what is a deal to Sam and what's a deal to Marlon and what's a deal to Grant Cardone are three different things. And so we need to talk about this. So by the end of this, let's call it episode, we're going to have properly helped you gain a framework to define a deal for yourself. But we also, before we even do that, we need to talk about where do you find deals? Because I think everybody freaks out that this is happening or that's happening or this is the new way to find deals. When at the end of the day, what creates a deal, you want to go for the time tested, proven methodology of purchasing real estate at a discount. There are certain problems that are a part of the human condition that aren't going anywhere. And so anyone that tries to tell you now is the best time, they're full of, it's BS. It's always the best time if you're doing it properly, right? Like Sam, would you disagree with anything that I said so far?
No, the only thing I'd add is half the time, 80% of the time, they say now is the best time. It's because they're launching a program like right around the same time. So
It's the reality, right? Like if they're telling you now is the only time, now is the best time, it means they have something to sell. How do I know? Because I sell things. And like I understand urgency and creating urgency within people. So today, you guys are lucky. We have nothing to sell you. We got nothing to sell you. We're here to give to you. And so, by the way, Sam, you're gonna love this. I was hanging out with Bobby last week. Bobby sold his company to the tune of like $100+ million, right? They sold over a nine-figure exit. Awesome dude, snowboarding, skiing, great guy. And he gave me this saying that has been on my mind nonstop. He said, being an adult means giving more than you take. So tonight, Sam and I are going to be adulting. I think we adult every week when we come on the podcast, but we're going to be adulting right now. And so let's talk about, first off, where do we find deals? Like, what are the conditions that create real estate deals? What are the conditions that create deals in our industry? And I'm going to say this loud and proud. I want you all to write this down if you're taking notes. Stop looking for properties, start looking for problems. There are a handful of problems that create opportunities for us as investors to be able to come in, solve their problems, and in exchange for solving their problems, we're able to purchase or take over their equity. And so, Sam, I want to ask you, what are some of those main problems that are time tested, that are just a part of human nature, that it doesn't matter if we're in the future with AI or if we were 300 years ago living in the Stone Age or however long the Stone Age was? What are some of those problems that are just consistently a part of the human experience?
okay, first, I want to. Can I add a frame to this because I think people like I do well with frames and
Please.
they help me view the world. And as you guys know, when Marlon talked about in finding problems, it's actually the key to every business ever. Every business ever. Like, it's not just real estate. People think, okay, how do I make money in real estate? I need to look for distress scenarios. No, that is the answer to every business. Every business. You have a service-based business, a digital business, a food business, any type. Hell, even OnlyFans is solving a problem that someone has that they are at least somewhat aware of. And so, if you want to make money, stop looking for stop looking. And I understand this. I understand people want to drive value in things they do. But it's like, if your goal is to just drive value through your service, that's great. But if you're trying to drive value to people who don't need the value because they don't have a problem, you're useless, right? You're trying to better a system that's more or less perfect. If you have distress, that's the key. We're here to solve distress and add value to distress, because that disparity between where they're currently at versus where they want to be in a perfect world vision, that disparity, that difference, that's where you make your money. And the bigger the difference of where they're at versus where they want to be, the bigger that spread, aka will also correlate to how much money you could potentially make. And this stands very, very true in real estate. But I want people to understand this, because it drives me up a wall, man. I'm a generally analytical person when it comes down to targeting in marketing. Like, that's my thing, is marketing and sales, especially in real estate. I am tired of this, guys. Any influencer or guru or person talking head on a screen that tells you to go target lists specifically, I'm gonna be very granular here, lists like tired landlord, vacant, or absentee owner, or high equity. Horrible lists. Horrible. And I'm going to break this down. Absentee owner. What does that mean? It just means they don't live in the freaking place. It literally means, from a system standpoint, that their mailing address is on paper different than the subject property. That doesn't mean anything about them needing to sell or wanting to sell or having to sell. There's a reason why you got to go pull 20, 30,000 records at a time for a list like that. Same thing goes. Go ahead.
And real quick, right? Listen to the numbers. You just said 20, 30, 40,000 data points, 30,000 people on a list. And typically the guru that's telling you to go after absentee, isn't it interesting that they also have either an affiliate link or they have a software to help get you that data? Where
I'll be real with you. And here's the thing. It's not even the data. It's this. So I'm going to be very, very blatantly honest with this. I'm going to go through all the other lists here really quickly, because, like, okay, we have the vacant, the absentee owner, right? Or the vacant, meaning the property, they're living outside of it. Same basic list. Let's talk about tired landlord. Tired landlord is a great one, because people are like, oh, tired has a negative connotation. You don't know if they're tired. The system doesn't know if they're tired. All that means, from a systematic standpoint, is they bought the property over 10 years or longer ago. And does that mean they inherently need to sell, want to sell, have to sell, and also will sell at a discount? Hell no. And then we go look at something like, oh my God, what was it? It was a high equity. Worst list. Worst list. You mean you want me to go target people where I'm looking for an investor discount? I'm looking for distress where I can get a big, deep deal on it, but it has potentially free and clear. They've owned it outright. Why would they sell? There's no inherent truth to them needing to sell, wanting to sell, having to sell. And this is why we have to go pull 20, 30, 40,000 records at a time, doing a needle in a haystack approach. And the danger, Marlon, isn't the 20, 30,000 records. And there's a reason why they do this. Just so you know, it's not even that they have the software or the list providing company they're trying to get an affiliate for. Guys, this is how big, and I know this because I get pitched this literally every other freaking day from these companies. When I go and tell someone to go pull vacant or tired landlord or high equity, you have to go pull 10, 20 minimum 1,000 records per month.
Mm-hmm.
The money isn't there. The money is in the fact that it's going to cost 10 cents per skip.
Skip tracing.
And then the skip tracing is where they make the money. And then so if I'm an influencer and I push you to a company like that, and you go pull 20,000 records, and I push you to my skip tracing affiliate where it's like, usually it's like 15 cents, 12 cents. But if you use code SamSing, you're going to get it's going to be 10 cents per skip. Guys, 20,000 records, 10 cents per skip, that's $2,000 per month. And then you still have to market to it. Then you still have the cold callers and all these things. So all I'm saying is, that is a great way to go out of business really freaking fast. I hate that. because we're looking for a needle in a haystack. We can just look for a needle in a stack of freaking needles. And two things, actually one thing, because I want to drive the point home for one specific thing, and that is distress. You can quantify as one basic thing. Is there an external factor that is going on in this person's life that will force them to sell the property at a given time? So when we look at things like probates or foreclosures, best one. One of the, whether you're a cash investor or a creative finance guy, whether you like subject to or short sales, it doesn't matter. Foreclosures, pound for pound, probably the most motivated list. Why? Because if they don't fix their issue, their external circumstance where that they can't afford to pay the bill every single month, right? Because they don't make enough money, or the interest rate they bought was too high, or they lost their job, or whatever the hell it is, it will actually force them to either sell the property or be escorted out by law enforcement so it can be auctioned off. That is an external factor that will force the sale of a property. Another one that I love that's been like my best performing.
Wait, Sam, you're on fire. Sam, you're on fire. Hold that thought for 2 seconds.
Okay.
Keep it going. I'm loving this right now. But I need y'all right now. If you've gotten any value from Sam or myself on the Think Big podcast, either today or before in the past, put some fire in the chat. Because what Sam just dropped on you is a whole bar. I mean, if we stop the podcast right now, you are already better suited to do real estate than 99% of the people in the industry, because we need to go back. Like Sam, you went over that so damn fast because I know you're gangster at this, but there's somebody new listening that just missed what you said. The fact that you are looking for a problem with a homeowner who is in a place where they need to sell, there is external pressure being put on them that is not coming from you. So many of you are having bad luck with the sellers because you're the one putting pressure onto them to sell because they don't need to sell. Sam is literally telling you this, that those lists you've been pulling are a bunch of people who do not need to sell, and you are now pressuring them to sell. All right, Sam, I'm sorry, because just look at the fire in the chat. That's the amount of people that you have served. You have served those people and you guys, shout out to y'all for showing up every single Tuesday. All right, Sam, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't cut you off. I hope you remember where you were at, because you're freaking gangster right now. Keep going.
No, you're good, dude. You're good. And so here's the thing, guys. My goal is this. My goal, and like, don't get me wrong, it's so funny. We had a meeting. I heard out a company very recently, 3 days ago, 3-4 days ago, and they've got an amazing system behind the scenes, an amazing system behind their list business and how they do all the things. And every step of the way, they're like, yep, if you do this, this, and this, and all these things are actually really easy to do, even with an extremely small brand like mine. They're like, dude, you can make an extra 10 to 20 grand per month minimum on a conveyor belt. We do all the work. And I was just like, damn, that's great. I can't do it because people won't get results because they're chasing the wrong things. And the problem is they did it because I told them to go do it. And so, guys, when you look at external motivating factors, like one of the best performing lists for me over the last couple of years, it died down, not died down, but it slowed down this past year. But historically, it's been divorces. Like, we love divorces. Now, understand this, guys. A divorce, the selling of the property may actually be required by the judge to settle the freaking divorce.
Yep.
And then you guys, like, people don't realize that when the husband cheats on the wife, yeah, she will sell that property at a discount because she wants away from his dumbass. And that creates an opportunity for you. And so I want everyone to stop going and chasing these dumb lists that you have to go pull 10, 20, 30, 40,000 records a month. You don't. That was like the thing 5 years ago when everyone's like, yeah, pull 30,000 records, hire 5 full-time cold callers, dial 5 lines at a time, have 200 phone numbers on deck in your dialer, and hemorrhage 5 to 6 grand a month in spend. Robert Wensley, who's a good friend of both of ours, through his platform Investor Lift, has proven that I think the industry average for a new wholesaler, there's like a 96% failure rate in the first year. And the reason isn't inexperience. It's not because they don't know how to run numbers. That can actually happen too. The number one reason is because too much overhead doing the wrong thing. And our goal for you guys, I stand by this, Marlon. You let me know if you agree with this. My thing is this: I am sick and tired of people coming to my DMs like, hey, Sam, how do I make 10 grand in the next 30 days? And I'm like, dude, if you've never done anything before, you're not going to make 10 grand in 30 days. This is not going to happen unless you luck out. And if you luck out probably the worst thing that could have happened to you, because now you've been reinforced a concept or a proof of concept that won't be repeatable because you haven't gotten the skill sets. So if you're in your first year, two things, this is going to tie back into what we're talking about today. Number one goal in your first year, whether you're a buyer, a flipper, a wholesaler, a lender, a TC, number one goal in your first year is to freaking survive it and not go out of business. That is it. Don't die. That's it. Number two goal is to just learn. Pay down your ignorance debt without going out of business. You do that. No one has the stats for this, but if I had a way to prove this and figure out this data, I could almost guarantee the people who survive the first year and pay down their ignorance debt, they will make a career, a lifetime career out of this industry. But the 96% that fail out, they go back to their jobs, they go do drop shipping, they go and start selling people life insurance scams, all the other shit in the world that doesn't actually work because they didn't get the instant gratification they thought they needed because they were doing the wrong things. But back to learning, because I don't want to make this about like list pulling and data and marketing, all that kind of stuff. Let's talk about deals. First and foremost, you need motivation. You're going to hear a lot of buzzwords. Every real estate marketing company that's selling you this, selling you leads, selling you data, selling you all of these things, all of them will promise you motivated seller leads. Okay, and we see this a lot with like PPC and PPL through Facebook and Google ads, especially. And the reality is just because they opted into a web form that was disruption marketing on Facebook that injected itself into their timeline does not mean that they're actually very motivated. It just means that they maybe want a cash offer on their home. Now with Google, it is definitely going to be a little bit more motivated, or you can assume it will be, and that's totally fine, right? Let me get this done. Ugh. And so here's the interesting thing for a lot of people who just aren't super cognizant of this, is that someone saying I want an offer is not necessarily motivated. We want to look for exactly. We want to look for an external factor that will force the sale of a property. You figure out those niches, right? Foreclosures, divorces, probates, very often code violations based on the type of code violations, tax liens, depending on the type of tax liens. This is where people are getting guaranteed motivation. Here's the key though. They're also not spending a ton, because someone said it earlier, like the volumes are super freaking small. You're not pulling 10,000 records at a time, pulling maybe like 100, 200, depending on the area that you're in. And the cool thing is now you're not going to go out of business because your overhead is pennies comparatively to everybody else. And so remember how I mentioned earlier, like we're doubling down on the business because everyone else is falling off the face of the earth, because a lot of them blew their entire budget in Q1. They blew their budget, didn't hit their cash conversion cycles. They didn't do all the things. And now we're like, cool, because we were smart, because we were efficient and effective in the beginning few months of the year, when all these other guys are starting to phase out, we're like, cool, we've got more to play with, a lot more to play with, because we were smarter with our budgeting, smarter with our resource allocation. And so let's move on from motivation. I think you guys get that. Here's the thing. Depending, and here's, I need to stand on this, like I will die on this hill. A good deal to you is not a good deal to me. It is not a good deal to Marlon, is not a good deal to Pace Morby. You have to be very, very, very careful if you are purchasing the asset. So if you're flipping or buying and holding for a rental or an Airbnb or a midterm or whatever you're doing, co-living, whatever you're doing, here's the truth. Stop buying like other people unless you have the same life as them. I have seen so many dudes. Marlon, you and I came up, I would say, in a cohort in Pace Morby's ecosystem a couple of years back, right? You were there before me, but I would say there was a lot of young guys who came up around that time. And then over the last 3 years, as we've all grown, let's be very real here. Marlon and I, like, we've survived. And a lot of those guys, they are not in the ecosystem anymore. They were big names back then, making a lot of noise, doing all the things, and they're gone. And a lot of the ones that are gone, it's because they started buying assets thinking they were Pace Morby, thinking they had the life he did, the money that he has, the income that he has. So when we start looking into asset purchasing, I want you to understand everything is risk. Shit, even wholesaling is a risk because you've got EMD. And even if you don't put on EMD, guess what? You've got a reputation and there is risk to losing that. There's so much that goes into all these things. Risk is everywhere. And so I don't want you guys purchasing like, okay, cool. Pace Morby buys no equity, this, that, and the other, and the interest rate's a little bit tight, and it will maybe only work as a wrap or a lease option or something, or a co-living, blah, 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 blah. Cool. That dude makes like 8-9 figures a year. He's rich. And rightly so, he crushes the game of business. But if you're married and you have kids and you're still at your W-2 and you're making 50 grand a year top line before taxes, you can't afford to take that same risk. So I want everyone to understand. People think it's like, okay, if you put a deal into this magic calculator and the calculator says it's a great deal no matter what, it can never go wrong. Marlon and I own real estate. Shit goes wrong all the time in the best markets. I have properties that are in the best markets in the country that we can't even rent out, even when we're cheaper than the rest of the market rent. It's insane because affordability is becoming a massive issue right now. And so I want people to really, really, really understand this, that it is not a game of, it's not a binary. It's not, is this a good deal? Is this a bad deal? Like that, sure, that works. But at the end of the day, it's, can I afford this risk? There's always risk. It's just more risk or less risk. If you're making 10 million a year and you're super liquid and your business crushes an active income, then sure, shoot the shot on the no equity that barely cash flows because you just want the depreciation buy, and you're very aware that you're going to lose $1,000 a month holding that, but you can save 80 grand in your first year in just bonus depreciation. If that risk assessment is cool with you, awesome, full send. But if that's not you, stop looking at other people in the industry who are at that stage of life who can swing that, and then thinking that it's gonna apply to you. It won't. And everyone who had those buying patterns over the last 2 years, almost all of them are done. All of them. And they're not in real estate anymore. They're all like trying to buy laundromats now, and they're all trying to do whatever they're doing, because they've fallen out of the game because they tried to be where someone else was instead of being where their feet are at now. And so, oh my God.
But everything you're saying, Sam, is so spot on. And this is exactly why we're having this conversation about how to identify a deal. Because in order to identify a deal, you need to understand why are buyers buying, because everybody buys for a different reason. And so when you're looking at identifying a deal, you need to ask yourself, the buyer that's buying, for example, in 2025, if a buyer is buying the fix and flip, if let's say you're going to fix and flip, something that you have to take into account are a few items. The first is, how much profit can I potentially make on the deal? And so when we're looking at this, typically people think in terms of percentage, but I like to think in terms of, am I going to be able to make a certain dollar amount at the end of a deal? If I can't make at least a $70,000 to $80,000, like $80,000 of profit in my pocket on a flip, I'm going to say no to it. But here's the thing. And Sam, you tell me if you've seen this. People will look at a flip and say, well, this flip, you can make $80,000 on, so it's a great deal. And then I ask, well, how much is the purchase price? And they say, well, it's going to be a $1.2 million purchase, but then you can sell it for $1.3 million. And I'm like, that's a terrible deal. You want me to risk $1.2 million only to make $80,000? The amount of money that needs to be put at risk in order to get the return, it doesn't make it worthwhile anymore, because I can go somewhere else in the market. I can find another deal that I can purchase for $100,000 and sell for $250,000 and make the same form of profit. And so it's important to understand how much money is actually coming up. And what I find most people don't do when they're looking at deals is you need to figure out, what is the minimum ROI, what that you're willing to accept. What is your personal threshold for an ROI? An ROI stands for a return on investment. How do you even calculate an ROI? It's a very simple formula that nobody uses anymore. And I don't know why. I think we get caught up in the social media frenzy. We get caught up in what other people are doing. Like you mentioned, Sam, they're so galvanizing with their content that you just automatically assume that their strategy should be your strategy. And you start chasing it, even though it's totally out of season for you. And then you have no clue why they're doing what they're doing, because for them, like you mentioned, there's a high ROI. So when we look at ROI, the formula is this. Please write it down. I wish I had my whiteboard. I apologize to you all for not having a whiteboard today. Next week, I will come more prepared. But write this formula down. An ROI is equal to your NOI, which is your net operating income, your NOI, your net operating income, AKA how much money you make at the end of all your expenses at the end of the year. So if you're renting your property out for $1,000 and you have a mortgage on the property for $700, at the end of each month, you make $300. And if I take that 300 and I multiply it by 12, that gives me, I believe, $3,600 a month. Then I know my net operating income is $3,600 per month. We're using gross numbers. We're going to pretend that your house didn't need any work or maintenance this year. So I take that $3,600 per month, and let's say I purchased this property for $100,000. I would take 36, I would divide it by $100,000, and that should give me something like, let me do it on the calculator because I'm not a math whiz. That would give me 0.036, which is what I thought. I would multiply that by 100, and I would see, oh, wow, this deal is only giving me a 3.6% return on investment. Now, some of you might be thinking to yourself, well, I'm making $300 a month. That's awesome. Well, no, you're only making 3.6. You're not even beating inflation. This is a terrible deal. And yet, people buy these deals and they think, oh my gosh, I bought an awesome deal. You bought a 3.6% ROI. That is a terrible deal. How do we make it a better deal? Maybe we use leverage, maybe we use a loan, but we need to understand what is the ROI on the deal that we're purchasing. What is the minimum ROI you're looking for? Now, I'm going to give you a framework for if you're in real estate. I don't believe you should buy a property unless you can make at minimum between 15% or higher. If you're not making at least that, and honestly, you know what? That's a lie. I'm going to X that off because I want you guys to aim higher. If you're the operator and you're buying this property, you need to be making at minimum 20% or higher. At minimum 20% or higher. Because if you're not even making just that, then it's not worth the stress. And then you should just be lending your money to guys like me and Sam, where we'll get you 12, 15, 18% on your money. Hell, we'll get you up to 40% on your money, and you don't even need to lift a finger. But if you're going to be doing the work and taking on the stress, you need to make sure it's worthwhile. When I define a deal, and Sam, you know this about my portfolio, one of the cool things about my portfolio is because I'm such an ROI Nazi, I make sure that I'm always getting the best ROIs no matter what deal I buy. The ROI I look for in every single deal is infinite. I look for, how do I get into these deals where literally I get paid to buy property? And so when identifying a deal for yourself, have you ever asked yourself, or has it ever occurred to you, can I buy a deal where I make money to buy the deal? This is rule number one in real estate investing. When you're looking for deals, I don't care what anyone says, creative finance is cool, but equity is king. Creative finance is awesome, but equity gives you options. And so rule number one of real estate investing, rule number one of identifying a deal in 2025 is right now in 2025, with the way the market's going, with the way interest rates are going, you need to buy deals at a deeper discount now more than ever. I'm just being honest. Because if you're doing fix and flips, here's the reality of fix and flippers right now. Their properties are sitting on the market longer. Less people are able to afford the purchase, even though the comps and the ARV support the purchase price. Houses are becoming less and less affordable right now for the average US citizen. And therefore, in order to be able to make a profit on a fix and flip, you actually need to buy at a deeper discount. And funny enough, you need to sell at a discount right now. You can't be the highest priced property in the market anymore. Not if you want to sell quickly. You actually want to be able to, and here's the thing, you're not losing money, but you want to come in with a different mindset. How can I buy a property 40 cents on the dollar and sell it to the marketplace at 85 cents on the dollar, 90 cents on the dollar? How can I actually offer a deal to the marketplace and still be profitable? It puts you in a different league. You're doing things other people aren't willing to do. You're going to start to get results other people won't get. And so in 2025, where you have interest rates are up, you have job markets are down, inflation has eroded purchasing power for the average US citizen. It has eroded it. And if you think it's going to get better anytime soon, the government has already said, hang on, like it's going to get worse before it gets better. We're entering a season that is going to be a tough season. I want you guys to be prepared. You cannot go in to the marketplace with the same buying strategies, the same negotiating strategies that you were using in 2024 and 2023. Because what did we have in 2024, 2023? We had institutional buyers, hedge fund buyers that had access to a lot of capital. They were overpaying. You had people that were hopping onto the frenzy because they believed that they could always sell it to the next person. It was a game of musical chairs and the music was flowing. Well, guess what? The music is turning down and people are realizing there's not as many chairs anymore. And
Yeah, dude, even Zillow got burned on that one.
Dude, Zillow got super burned. Open Door got crazy burned. And what's happening is people are now seeing what we saw several months ago. So when we're identifying deals in this market, when you want to identify a deal in 2025, here's a rule of thumb that I've been giving to everybody that will keep you somewhat safe. And I need you to adopt this mindset that it's possible for you to go into the marketplace and it's possible for you to purchase properties at 50 cents on the dollar, at 40 cents on the dollar. And if you're playing in those ranges, I know a lot of people are taught this. Well, if I just get it at 80 cents on the dollar minus repairs, if I get it at 70 cents on the dollar minus repairs, that's typically only putting you around 65 to 60%. That's not deep enough anymore, especially if you're trying to assign these deals. You need to be closer to the 40 and 50 cents range. And for those of you that don't believe it can happen, it tells me one thing. It just means you're targeting the wrong data. This is why we started off with where do you even find these deals? Because they exist. People are buying them every day. Well, not everybody, but guys like Sam are buying these sort of deals every single day. He's selling these sort of deals every single day. Robert Winsley is selling these sort of deals every single day. Our buddies Brandon and Dylan Trana are selling these sort of deals every single day. My roommate Caroline, she's selling these deals every sort of day, every day. But you need to understand
doing that about, and this is like, I'm pretty big on the trickle effect that your marketing has on the rest of your business. A lot of people don't realize it's like, okay, well, they'll be afraid about going after the 40 to 50 kind of cent range, 40, 50% of either ARV or of market value, however you want to run your numbers, because they're afraid that the offer won't be accepted. So they don't shoot the shot. So they only shoot the shot at 60 to 70%. They don't get the deal because, or they do, or worst case scenario, you find out someone else got the deal and they were 40 cents on the dollar. That's actually the worst one possible. Yep. Here's a reality that people don't realize. One, if you do that, okay, you start aiming deeper, you will naturally, more offers will be rejected. And that's okay. Here's a reason why. If you double your spread and have half of the conversion, what ends up happening to your profit at the end of the day? It stays the freaking same. If you double your spread, okay, you double your potential profit on a deal by offering lower, significantly lower than you normally would. Okay, you increase your spread, you double it, but by nature, because you're giving disrespectful offers to sellers, your conversion rate drops in half. It doesn't matter. You still make the same amount of money. And here's why that is actually a better way to run your business. Because one, you have less deals, less escrows, less logistics, less personnel needed, and you actually have a better flowing system. This is why the dudes who wholesale out of California, I'm gonna tell you right now, guys who only do cash wholesale out of California, who do 50 deals a year, okay, will make 50 times more money than the guys who do 1,000 deals in the middle of Ohio. And they have better businesses that are better functioning with smaller teams that are easier to manage and easier to scale. And so I've done this. I've been in the low ticket markets. I've been in war zone markets like Dayton, freaking Ohio, where hedge funds will go, dude, I sold deals to a hedge fund that for 50 grand to 100 grand will buy 10 houses. Entire package portfolios, 10 houses for $100,000. I've sold deals to those guys. Yep. The amount of work, logistics, lead flow, marketing, targeting, all the stuff for, at the end of the day, a $5,000 profit. You could have run the same ecosystem, actually cut your entire team in half, gone to a normal market in California and made 5 to 10 times that on one deal and only have to deal with 1 or 2 escrows instead of 500 escrows. So I want people to start reframing their mindset about shooting for deeper deals. Do it. Trust me, I've done it. And what ends up happening is when you get that proof of concept, your worldview freaking changes. Because now you're like, dude, I'm only going to be disrespectful in my offers. Like, I am going to be hyper disrespectful in my offers. I don't give a damn anymore about walking on eggshells to this seller that I just met, like, or through the phone on top of that.
I'm
Like,
I'm about to give these guys. I want to give you guys a master class in how to make an offer. Here, this is the master class in how to come up with your offer right now. Check this out. When you make your offer, be embarrassed. If you are not embarrassed giving out that cash offer, if it does not make you feel some type of silly to say that number that you are going to offer for the property, I can promise you this, you are offering too much money for the deal. You're offering too much money. You need to be embarrassed of your offer. Because if you've ever given a cash offer and they said yes right away, you've offered too much money. And to Sam's point, going for higher margin deals. See, you have to believe. I learned this from there's one real estate guy out there in the internet where honestly, I never bought his program. I don't even really consume a lot of his content, but I did see one video on YouTube from him one day that just it resonated with me. The guy's name is Thatch Wynn. I like to give credit where credit's due. That's why I'm bringing him up because Thatch is an investor out of California, and Thatch is a guy who used the Burr method in California. So he's a Vietnamese refugee that moved to California, barely spoke the English, and he's been able to do Burr strategy, which is buying, renovating, rehabbing, renting out, refinancing, and doing cash out refis on the deals. Now, everyone said that it's impossible to do that deal in California. You can't make deals like that happen here because these are $1 million properties. No one's ever going to sell you deep enough of a discount for you to run the Burr strategy. You got to take that somewhere to like Ohio, where the houses are worth $60,000, $100,000. And Thatch said, you know what? You're right. And continued to ignore those people and go out into the marketplace and proceeded to find Burr deals where he was getting properties 30 cents on the dollar, 20 cents on the dollar in California, in the exact market where people said it is impossible to buy this low. But because he had a mindset, he had a belief that these sort of deals existed, and he was willing to have the conversation that would then create the opportunity. See, a lot of you aren't getting into the opportunity because you're not opening your mouth. You don't have the belief that it would exist, that it would even happen for you. Therefore, you're not giving the ingredients to make it happen. That was giving the ingredients through the form of negotiation, through the form of reaching out to homeowners with distress, with problems that he can solve. And then he was creating these opportunities. It was because of him, actually, Sam. What's funny is I watched that video just probably a week or so before you and I did Six Figure February for the first time, however many years ago. And that's what fired me up with the belief that it was possible to go and find outrageous deals in my own marketplace that everyone said these sort of deals couldn't happen. And so,
you know what's really funny on that, really quickly. I want to hit on this. I think he's in Seattle now, but whatever. He's doing like, and that's by the way, it's and that's like for a lot of people like Seattle, California, Seattle even more so, where it's like people are afraid of that market because it's a competitive market. Everything's overvalued, it's overinflated, and it doesn't change the fact that guys who are there crushing it. And so here's the funny thing. He's now doing what I really like, and I haven't even done this yet. And I don't care to do it personally, but I love watching other people do it. He's doing something that everyone else is afraid to do, and that's the ADU play. So he's taking these deals where he's getting them at a disgusting discount because he does a lot of like smaller multifamily stuff, right? 5 units to 10 unit stuff. And then what does he do? Because California, guys, a property in California, in Seattle, in Washington, on the west coast of the country, we're running out of land effectively to build in these major markets. So now what's happening is the builds are getting taller, not wider. They're getting taller with multi-units. And if there is land, like you got a big ass backyard, now all the guys are just putting ADUs back there because the demand is so freaking high because he knows what buyers are willing to pay in the market. They can go and buy a house, buy a duplex, buy a triplex with a big ass backyard and add a fourth accessory dwelling unit back there. And here's the cool thing though, and I want to tie this back with Thatch and getting those deep discounts. One, Thatch is a great follow on social media. I love his attitude. He's just very like no BS, very, very cool. And here's the interesting thing, guys. A lot of you guys are like, well, why would someone, sell their $1 million property for 30 cents a dollar, 40 cents a dollar? Like, why would that happen? Because distress. This all goes back to Marlon's early point. Motivation, the right distress. People in foreclosure are in foreclosure. It doesn't matter if your property is worth 1.1 million. When you catch your wife cheating on you and you're going through a divorce, you want out. Like distress and motivation, the right ones, they transcend inflation. They transcend. They're more important than the value of the home because guess what? The value of the home is monetary, but distress can affect you emotionally, mentally, spiritually, in your relationships. That stuff will have a greater impact on the quality of someone's life. And I promise you, people are willing to walk away from a large amount of their property's value if you can cure not the financial problem, but the mental problem, the emotional problem, the stress, the distress that they're going through. And okay, continue. I'm so sorry.
No, but you're spot on there. And guys, again, I'm going to keep repeating this because I want this to be solidified into your mind that when you go out and you create a deal, what creates a deal in 2025 is you as the buyer, you as the person putting your name on the contract to purchase, whether you're going to wholesale it, whether you're going to fix and flip it, whether you're going to buy and hold it, whether you're going to keep it for depreciation, is you being able to purchase into equity. You being able to buy into equity. And here's the cool thing. Sam knows this so damn well because of how smart he is, that equity is something that you can create through negotiation for yourself. That is how we create equity. We create it when you go. And what's funny, Sam, check this out. I find people, they have a hard time understanding what you just mentioned. Why would anyone ever sell this at a discount? And I use this analogy that imagine a person's walking down the street, and this has happened before. I've seen like these little social experiments where a guy will stand on the street and say, hey, I got $100 bill. Whoever wants it, you can have it. And he'll just walk up to strangers like, hey, you want this $100 bill? Oh, no, I'm busy. Hey, you want this $100 bill? No, it's okay. Thank you. No, thank you. And people will walk past a man literally trying to give them money. Why? Because there's no pain going on in their life. They're absorbed in their own situation. They're going to keep moving. Just like a seller on the high equity list, just like a seller on the tired landlord list, just like a seller on the absentee list. They have no pain. But then imagine this scenario. A man's walking across the street, trips on the sidewalk, falls, and hits his face onto a fire hydrant. So now he's gushing blood. In that moment, you can run over to that man and you can offer that man a handkerchief, and he's going to take that handkerchief and start putting it on his place. He's got no idea where that handkerchief came from. He's not even asking you where. You could have just blown your nose into it, but he's taking it. Then you can say to him, hey, sir, like, let me call the ambulance. Give me your cell phone. Unlock your phone for me so I can call the ambulance. He will literally unlock his most valuable device that has all of his data, all of his information, everything that's important to him, and literally hand it to a total stranger. Why is he willing to do all these things when he's not even necessarily getting a reward? You weren't standing there saying, I'll give you $100 for you to do these things. He's just now doing it because he's in pain, because you're offering solutions to help pull him out of his problem. He's willing to do things that he would not normally do outside of a distress situation because there's a promise, there's a value to get him out of the pain, which in that moment is more valuable to him than the cell phone in his pocket, than anything else. And so these people, when they have these homes that have equity, you might be looking at it at yourself thinking there's so much value here. Why would they ever give this up? But to them, it's not as valuable. To them, it is a pain point. Every deal I have ever purchased has been a result of me going inside of a person's mind, listening to their problem, discovering that there's massive amounts of pain, and me creating a roadmap to get them out of pain in exchange for a fair cash offer and some of the equity they have in the home.
That's okay, can you guys, I'm so sorry. I want to bring this to life for people so we're not just talking into the ether. You can see Zillow, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Marlon, you have stayed at this house.
I have. I remember this house.
Yeah, so you and me. So guys, this is a property I own. It's 816 Schooner Drive in Henderson, Nevada, which is like the city right next to Las Vegas. Marlon and I have actually stayed here a few nights when we last went and spoke there. Cool. Here's I own this house right now. Like literally, it is one of my properties. Here's the cool thing, guys. This property, I want you guys to pay attention to this. I'm going to scroll down to the previously sold section. Okay. Here's the sale history. Okay. Oh, this is all annoying stuff. Please tell me it shows. Yep. Okay, cool. I want you guys to notice this. In 2017, okay, this wasn't me. The seller bought it for $250,000. Okay, cool. This was the guy who I bought it from. Guys, 2022, I came in the mix and I bought the house for 5 years later. And Marlon, you remember the 2022 market. It was a freaking hot market. Hedge funds were overpaying for everything. This guy bought it for 250 grand. He sold it to me for 252 on a creative finance offer on a hybrid transaction where all I did is I think I paid him like 10 grand at close of escrow. And here's what's disgusting about this deal, guys, and disgusting in a good way. Open Door. Okay, you guys know the big hedge fund Open Door that was overpaying for everything at the time. Open Door, this guy bought it for 252 or 250,000. Open Door was offering him, and I know this because I actually helped him shop it at a point to Open Door. They offered him $440,000 for this house. 440 grand, and he had bought it for 250. He would have paid off his debt, made a crap ton of money, and then been good to go. Why the heck did he sell it to me for basically what he bought it for? And at the end, he effectively took a net loss by selling it to me on these terms at that price point. Why? And I can stop sharing here. Because he was going through a really messy family situation where he bought the property for his stepson and his basically his son and his stepdaughter. He bought it for them, and these guys were horrible human beings who wouldn't pay the bills. They didn't take care of the property. Mind you, the seller, his name was Mickey, awesome guy. He's like in his 80s. He doesn't have money coming in, and he's paying for his home with his wife. They're older, they're in their 80s, they're getting sick, they have medical bills, and then now he's paying to keep this property afloat that his son and his stepdaughter are living in, and they're in their 30s with like 3 kids, and they won't even pay the bills because they're just crappy human beings who don't want to work. And then here's the fun part, guys. Mickey, couldn't evict the guy. He tried to sell with an agent. And at that time, dude, agent didn't have to do work. They just put the property on the MLS. 2 minutes later, Open Door would show up and overpay for the house past ARV. He could have done that. Why didn't it work? Why didn't it happen? Because the guy, his son or stepson or whoever the guy was in the house was so combative and so aggressive. He was threatening to kill everyone that even showed up to the house, including my team. The reason why we got the deal and he said no to Open Door, who offered him literally over like 200,000 or 150,000 more than we did, whatever the numbers are, I can't do math. Whatever the number was, like almost 200 grand over what we offered him. Why? Because we said, hey, because he knew that if Open Door came in, they would have like thrown the guy out, not helped the stepson or the son or whoever it was who was family to Mickey, even though they were abusing him. They knew that Open Door would come in, buy the house, pay you a ton of money, kick them out, put them on the street, and then flip the house. Mickey, the reason why he sold to us is we're like, hey, I'll take it on right now with him in place. We are going to help him get into a new property. We're going to have our agents and our connections work for free for him. We'll pay all of the costs so we can get him and his family and his kids into a better living situation. We're going to do right by them because we promise you we will. And that meant a lot to Mickey, even though the guy was taking advantage of him. And here's the key, though. And I told Mickey straight up, I will do everything I can to make sure that we do right by this guy, even though he doesn't deserve it. But if he does go the worst way and we do have to evict him, I know you don't want to do the eviction because you're afraid of going to an eviction, what it's going to do to your family, right? You cannot bounce back from that. And Mickey wants a relationship with his grandkids. And I said, hey, if it comes down to it, let me be the bad guy. I will work with him. And if he doesn't work with me and he becomes combative and we have to go down the eviction route, let me go through it. Let me be the bad guy in the situation. That way your relationship with your grandkids stays alive. And through all of this, I literally walked in. That property at the time, Marlon, was probably truly worth like 375 to 400. I walked into like $150,000 of equity just because I was willing to step up and solve that problem in one of the most competitive markets in the country, at a peak market where the biggest hedge fund in Open Door was overpaying by $50,000 for everything. And I was still able to get the sickest freaking deal where even if that property sits vacant for a year, it's still a great deal no matter which way you look at it. Because we solved a huge freaking problem. And so I hope that provides a little bit of life to the story for you guys, that this stuff isn't just me and Marlon bullshitting online, like, we do this.
Guys, and Sam, like this is freaking awesome. First off, thank you for sharing that. Right. I see Giselle and Vandy in the chat, like, wow, oh my gosh, because this is the reality. So, what makes a deal? Like, if you're taking notes, if we had to condense it into bullet points, one, first thing that makes a deal is there has to be a problem you are solving for. I can't emphasize this part enough. The amount of people I personally, I still like every now and then helping new investors, right? I don't do it as nearly as much as I used to, but I still on occasion will jump on a phone with people's sellers just because I remember what it was like to get started and I remember how people served me. And the first question I ask every single time is, what problem does the homeowner have? What's the problem? I don't care if it's listed with an agent. I don't care if you're talking directly to the seller. If there's not a problem, then we are not having a conversation with them until you go and discover what the problem is. The second thing, is there equity in this deal? Because just because you can solve a problem doesn't mean you should solve a problem. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. And so, as tough as this may be, I'm going to give you guys some practical advice. You're in business to make money. You're going to serve people, but at the end of the day, the only job of a business is to produce money, is to make money. If your business isn't making money, it will not be in business for long. I have failed businesses in the past that the reason those businesses failed, earlier Sam said goal number one is to survive. The reason those businesses did not survive is because they stopped making money. I still had all the passion. I still had all the emphasis, like the enthusiasm about the business, but money wasn't coming in. The cash register wasn't ringing. And so don't allow your business to die because you are targeting properties and deals and problems that don't come with a paycheck at the end of solving it. So I got to make sure that if you want to do charity, do that on the weekends. But during the weekdays, you need to go and make money. So solving problems, getting equity, and then for identifying a deal, you need to understand the buyer. Why is the buyer buying? If you're wholesaling it, you need to understand what the buyer is trying to accomplish. And sometimes as a wholesaler, you're going to need to be more intelligent than the buyer you're selling to, because if you're selling to a fix and flipper, for example, listen, you can sell any new dumb fix and flipper one awesome deal where you make a fat spread, but then you're probably going to kill that person from being able to ever do a deal again in the future. And without realizing it, you cut off your own supply of customer. You want your buyers to make money on the back end of the deal because they will come back to you again. So if you understand what your buyer is trying to accomplish, it's going to help you understand on the front end, because you're the first person to talk to the seller, what you need to create. You need to create more equity when we need to buy deeper or when it's okay for us to offer more. But right now in 2025, I'm telling you, we are in a season where you need to be buying deeper across the board for every single deal, unless you're selling to some Saudi Arabian billionaire prince, right? If that's not your buyer and they're not just buying purely for depreciation or purely to own trophy properties, and you're just selling to people who are trying to make an honest living, you're selling to people who are trying to be in the game for the next 10 years. Right now in 2025, this season calls for deeper discounts. Make your money in the buy. Look for assets 30, 40, 50 cents on the dollar. Do not pay more than that. I promise you, those deals work. And as other investors slowly start to catch up and start to understand this as well, you're going to find that people aren't going to be saying, well, this guy offered me more. Like those things, even when they do offer you more, if someone says, if you're offering 30, 40, 50 cents on a dollar and they say, no, someone else offered me more, here's what I'm going to say to you. Keep that seller in your follow-up, because there's a good chance that that deal will fall through. It will not happen. I saw this back in earlier years, in earlier parts of my career, where the market was similar to this, where you had to buy at a deeper discount. People were offering more because they didn't know better. And those properties fell out of contract. And now that seller is even more motivated because their pain has persisted longer than they anticipated. So, guys, I hope you got value from today. If you got value from today, here's my big ask for you. This is a big ask. This show grows because of you. Today, we had about 50 people all live streaming with us at the same time at our peak viewership. And I want to see that number continue to grow. I remember when it would just be 5 of us on here, 10 of us on here, and it's grown because you guys are getting value and you guys are sharing the podcast with your friends. You're sharing the podcast with your family. You're sharing the podcast with your employees. I remember about 3 weeks ago, somebody actually sent me a message. This was so cool. Sam, I sent you the screenshot where they had a watch party. They had about 20 investors all gathered together in the living room around the big screen watching the Think Big podcast. So if you're getting value from the podcast, do me a favor, make sure you like the video on whoever's page you're watching. So if you're watching on Sam, make sure you leave a thumbs up. If you're watching on my video, leave a thumbs up right now. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. The algorithm actually shows us that we got a lot of viewers who watch every week, but still have not subscribed to the channel. So I find that crazy because clearly you're getting value. I don't know why you wouldn't want to be notified. So subscribe to the channel. And then most importantly, share this episode with a friend. Share it via text, share it via Instagram. The way I love seeing this is a lot of you guys screenshot the episode. You screenshot yourself watching like you're doing right now, and then you tag us on Instagram. That's my favorite way because then it opens up a dialogue for us to conversate. You can ask us questions there. We usually answer you in the DMs, or we'll bring your questions on to the next episode. So, guys, we love you. We appreciate you. Next Tuesday, we'll be back at 5 o'clock Arizona time. I got to say that because I believe daylight savings is happening this weekend. So remember, we're always 5 o'clock Arizona time. If you guys are on my email list, you'll get that email and you'll get that text message as a reminder. But we'll be back here next week to see you guys for another episode of the Think Big podcast. Peace out.